The forest was quiet except for the steady sound of water rushing over stone. The human traveler walked carefully along the riverbank, his boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. He had been moving through this alien land for days, guided only by instinct and the strange pull of curiosity. The air was heavy with the scent of moss and wild plants he had never seen before. Strange bird-like creatures called from the trees above, their voices sharp and echoing through the valley. Then a sudden cry cut through the silence. It was not an animal. It was a voice filled with panic. He turned sharply, scanning the wide river. His eyes locked onto a figure thrashing against the violent current. At first he thought it was impossible. The figure looked like a woman, yet not human. Her skin was pale, almost glowing against the dark water, and faint markings shimmered across her arms like streams of light. Her hair, long and silver, spread around her as the river tried to drag her under. She gasped for air, fighting against the waves, her hands reaching out desperately. The human froze for only a moment. He could walk away. This was not his fight. But as her eyes broke the surface and locked onto him, something pierced through him. They were wide, terrified, yet filled with a strange spark, as if she was silently begging him to choose. His heart pounded. Without another thought, he dropped his pack and leaped into the freezing water. The cold struck him like 1,000 knives, biting deep into his skin. The current pulled at his legs, dragging him downstream. His arms fought against the waves, pushing forward with all his strength. Each breath was heavy, but he refused to stop. The woman sank once, her hands flailing before disappearing under the surface. He pushed harder, lungs burning, until he reached the spot where the river bubbled violently. His hand shot down into the water, grasping desperately. For a terrifying second, there was nothing. Then, skin. Smooth, cold skin. He pulled with everything he had, and her face broke through the water again. She coughed and gasped, her glowing markings flickering faintly as she clung to him. "Hold on," he shouted. Though he doubted, she understood his words. Her nails dug into his arm, a grip born of fear. The river did not forgive. It slammed against them with wave after wave, dragging them toward sharp rocks that jutted out like teeth. He turned his body, shielding her, feeling the stone cut across, his back as they collided. Pain shot through him, but he held her tighter. He kicked against the current, guiding them toward the bank. Every muscle screamed, but step by step, breath by breath, they moved closer. At last his boots struck mud. He staggered forward, pulling her with him until both collapsed on the shore. The world spun around him, his chest heaving, water pouring from his hair and clothes. She lay beside him, trembling, coughing water from her lungs. For a long moment neither moved. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Only the river spoke, roaring behind them as if angry to have lost its prey. Finally, the human lifted his head. He turned toward the alien woman. Her eyes, large and luminous, were fixed on him. Drops of water ran down her pale skin, tracing the glowing lines across her shoulders. She was beautiful in a way that unsettled him, fragile yet strange and otherworldly. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, she shivered, curling slightly toward him as though his presence was her only anchor in this world. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, though again he knew she might not understand. Her hand reached out, trembling, and pressed weakly against his chest. It was not an attack. It was more like confirmation. He was real, solid, not just a dream in her drowning mind. For a moment her expression shifted from fear to relief, but before he could say anything more, a sound echoed from the forest. A deep, hollow blast like a horn carved from stone. It rolled through the trees, shaking the silence. The alien woman's eyes widened and her body stiffened. She whispered a single word, her voice barely audible, but filled with dread. The human frowned, glancing into the dark woods. Shapes began to move between the trees. Tall figures, their eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. The sound of heavy footsteps grew louder, closer. The woman clutched his arm tightly now, her nails digging into his skin. Her face was pale with fear, but not of the river anymore. Something else, something far worse. The human's heart pounded. He realized the rescue was only the beginning. Whatever he had stumbled into was much larger than saving a drowning stranger. The air grew heavy, filled with tension, as the shadows closed in, and he understood. His life had just changed forever. The human barely had time to catch his breath before the forest seemed to come alive. Branches cracked, the air trembled with movement, and shadows grew taller between the trees. From the darkness, figures stepped out one by one, their forms sharp against the flicker of moonlight. They were not like the drowning woman he had just saved. These aliens were taller, stronger, and armored with plates that seemed carved from stone and bone. Strange glowing threads ran across their armor, pulsing like veins of fire. Spears and curved blades gleamed in their hands, and their eyes, golden and bright, fixed on the intruder who knelt beside one of their own. The human rose slowly, his body still aching from the fight with the river. His arms trembled, water dripping from his clothes. He knew he looked weak, but his instincts screamed that any sudden move would mean death. The woman at his side gasped as the largest figure stepped forward. He towered above the others, his skin a deep shade of gray, his shoulders heavy with ornate markings that glowed brighter than the rest. His eyes narrowed, moving from the trembling woman to the human who stood guard over her. A low growl rumbled from his chest as he spoke, his voice deep and strange, carrying a weight that pressed against the human's chest. The words were alien, harsh, and cutting, yet the tone carried clear meaning, a demand. The woman stirred, still clutching her rescuer's arm. Her lips trembled as she answered, her voice soft and quick as though pleading. The clan leader's gaze darkened, but his eyes lingered on the human. The rest of the warriors began to mutter among themselves. Some hissed in anger, others whispered with something that sounded like disbelief. Their weapons tilted forward, but they did not strike. There was something holding them back. The human swallowed hard, raising his hand slowly in a universal gesture of peace. "I don't want trouble," he said, voice steady but quiet. "I only helped her." They could not understand his words, yet his intent was clear. The clan leader's eyes narrowed further. Then, in a sudden movement, the leader raised his hand and the entire group fell silent. He stepped closer, the ground shaking under his weight. The woman whispered again, this time a word the human could almost recognize. "Sacred." Her voice shook as she looked up at him, her silver hair clinging to her wet skin. The leader's expression shifted from suspicion to something else, something heavier. He pointed toward the human, then toward the woman, and finally pressed a hand to his chest. His voice carried across the clearing in sharp tones, ending with a deep growl that echoed into the night. The human did not understand the language, but he understood the meaning. The warriors reacted as one, bowing their heads slightly, though some did so reluctantly. The woman's grip on his arm tightened, her eyes shimmering with fear and confusion. She whispered to him, her voice breaking in human tongue, fragile but clear. "You belong, by law." The word struck him harder than the river had. Belong? By law? He blinked, his heart pounding. He had only jumped into the water to save a life. How could that simple act bind him to something far greater? The leader gestured sharply and the clan closed around them. Spears lowered, but not to strike. Instead, they formed a circle, trapping him within their ranks. The woman pressed closer to his side, trembling, her face pale. One of the younger warriors sneered, his golden eyes burning with hatred. He hissed a word toward the human, spitting at the ground near his feet. Another warrior pulled him back, whispering something low and urgent. But the anger remained, sharp as the blades they carried. The human realized he was no longer just an outsider. He was a threat, a disruption to their ways and perhaps to their pride. The clan leader finally spoke again, his voice carrying finality. He pointed once more to the human, then to the woman, and then toward the forest where their path led deeper, into the unknown. The woman lowered her head, tears glistening in her eyes. She turned to the human, whispering softly, "They will not let you go. You saved me. Now, you are bound." The human's mind raced. He wanted to deny it, to fight, against whatever strange law they followed. But as he looked into the glowing eyes of the clan surrounding him, he understood he had no choice. The woman's clan moved as one, guiding him forward into the darkness of the forest. Spears glowed faintly at his sides, a warning not to resist. His chest tightened as he stepped into the circle of shadows. He glanced once at the river behind them, its roaring water fading into silence. That river had nearly drowned him, but what lay ahead in the depths of the forest felt far more dangerous. The march into the forest felt endless. The human walked in silence, surrounded on every side by tall alien warriors. Their weapons glowed faintly in the dark, each step in rhythm, like a living wall closing him in. The alien woman stayed close, glancing at him with nervous eyes as though she feared he might vanish if she looked away. At last, the forest opened into a clearing. Fires burned in great stone bowls, sending smoke spiraling into the starry night. Strange huts of wood and bone formed a circle around the flames, and the clan gathered quickly. Voices rose in excitement and anger, mixing together like a storm. The human stood at the center, his wet clothes heavy, his skin marked by scratches from the river. He felt dozens of eyes fixed on him, eyes filled with suspicion, awe, and hatred. He had never felt so exposed, so utterly out of place. The clan leader raised his hand and silence spread. He stepped forward, his golden eyes burning with authority, and began to speak in the alien tongue. The sound was deep and powerful, each word carrying weight like a hammer striking stone. The human could not understand the language, but he felt the meaning in the tone. This was not anger alone. This was ceremony. The alien woman trembled beside him. Finally, she lifted her face and whispered, her voice carrying enough for him to hear. "They speak of law, the sacred law of my people." He frowned. "What law?" She swallowed hard. Her glowing markings dimmed as she spoke like fading light. "When a life is saved from death, it no longer belongs to itself. It belongs to the Savior. It is an ancient bond older than memory. You pulled me from the river. By sacred law, I am yours." The words struck him like a blade. He stepped back, shaking his head. "No, that's not why I saved you. I didn't mean for this." Her eyes shimmered with pain, as though she wished she could change the truth. Meaning does not matter. The law is older than choice. To deny it would insult the clan, and that insult is answered with blood. The human's stomach tightened. He looked around at the burning eyes of the warriors, the way their hands tightened around their weapons, waiting for a single wrong move. He realized her words were no warning. They were a promise. The elder of the clan stepped forward then. He was older than the leader, his body thin, his back bent with age, but his eyes shone brighter than all the rest. His voice carried wisdom and steel as he began to chant words the human could not understand. The clan bowed their heads in unison, their armor glowing faintly in response. The woman translated in whispers, her voice breaking. "The elder speaks of the bond. He says you are not a stranger now. You are marked by law. The clan will protect you, but you must accept her place. If you reject it, they will see it as an insult to the ancestors. They will see you as an enemy." The human's jaw clenched. He looked at the woman, her wet silver hair framing her fragile face, her eyes heavy with both fear and gratitude. He saw the truth in her trembling lips. She had not chosen this either. She was bound as much as he was. The elder's chant ended with a deep silence. Then the leader pointed directly at the human, his voice booming through the night. The warriors roared as one, a thunderous sound that shook the air. Some cheered with reverence, others hissed with anger, but all accepted the law's judgment. The woman lowered her head, her voice breaking into almost a whisper. "It is done. They will not kill you. They cannot. You are part of the clan now, and I belong to you." The human's chest tightened with unease. He had not asked for this. He did not want ownership of another life, least of all a stranger from a world not his own. Yet as he looked around at the circle of warriors, the glowing firelight on their weapons, he knew the choice was gone. The clan began to disperse, some looking at him with awe, others with open hatred. A few whispered in tones that made his skin crawl, their eyes sharp and jealous. He could already feel the tension building, like a storm waiting to break. The elder turned once more, speaking slowly, carefully, as though to make the meaning clear even without shared words. He placed his hand on his chest, then pointed at the human, then at the woman. His voice softened, but the weight of the law pressed harder than any weapon. The human understood even without translation. This bond is unbreakable. The woman leaned closer, whispering again, her voice trembling. From this night forward, everything you do, every step you take, will be judged by the bond. You cannot walk away, not now, not ever. The firelight danced in her eyes as the human stood in silence, the weight of destiny pressing down on him. He had saved her from drowning, but now by their law he was drowning in something far deeper, something he could never escape. The night grew heavier as the fires burned low. The human sat near the edge of the clearing, his body still aching. From the river's wrath and the long march through the forest, his clothes clung to him damp and cold, but he ignored the discomfort. His eyes never left the circle of huts where the clan moved like shadows in the firelight. Everywhere he looked, eyes followed him. Some were filled with curiosity, others with respect, but many blazed with hatred. He felt it in the way their whispers cut through the air, the way hands tightened around spears when he passed. The alien woman sat near him, silent for a long while. Her silver hair glistened faintly in the firelight, her glowing markings dimmed with exhaustion. Yet she did not leave his side. It was as though the bond that had been forced upon them pulled her closer, even when her eyes showed the weight of fear. Finally she spoke, her voice low and soft. They are not united. Some see you as chosen, others see you as an insult. The human's jaw tightened. I never asked for this. She looked down, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Neither did I, but the law is stronger than us. From across the fire, a group of younger warriors watched them. Their golden eyes gleamed, their whispers harsh. One of them spat on the ground when the human glanced their way. His heart pounded as he realized the bond that saved his life tonight could also paint a target on his back tomorrow. The clan leader and elder remained distant, speaking quietly with other warriors, their faces unreadable. But the tension spreading among the rest was impossible to miss. Later, as the night deepened and the fires dimmed, the woman leaned closer. You must be careful. They will not strike now, not under the elder's eyes. But jealousy is strong. To them, you are an outsider who has been given what even they could never claim. He frowned. What did I claim? Her voice wavered. Me. The bond means more than belonging. To their eyes, I am a prize, a gift. And some of them think you are not worthy. The words chilled him. He had thought of her as a stranger he had pulled from the water, nothing more. But here, in this strange culture, her life carried meaning he did not yet understand. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. One of the young warriors stepped forward, his face twisted with pride and anger. He stood tall, his blade strapped to his back, his golden eyes glowing like fire. He pointed directly at the human, his voice sharp and mocking in the alien tongue. The woman stiffened beside him. He mocks you, he says you are weak, that you do not deserve the bond. The warrior's words grew louder, drawing attention. Others gathered, listening, nodding. Some grinned with cruel delight, while others frowned in disapproval. The tension grew heavy, like the air before a storm. The human rose slowly, standing, eye to eye with the challenger. He said nothing, only staring back, refusing to bow or step away. Silence spread, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Finally, the leader barked a command, his voice shaking the ground. The young warrior snarled but stepped back, his glare promising the conflict was not over. The crowd dispersed slowly, whispers rising once more. The woman let out a shaky breath. That one is dangerous. He will not stop. The law protects you, but only to a point. If he finds a way to challenge, the clan will allow it. The human clenched his fists. He had not come here for a fight, but he could feel the storm building. The respect of the clan was fragile, and the anger of one warrior could turn it into chaos. Later, when the fires died down and most of the clan drifted to their huts, the woman remained awake beside him. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "You saved me from the river, but here, you have thrown yourself into a deeper current. I do not know if you can survive it." He looked at her, at the fear in her eyes, and felt a strange mixture of resolve and unease. He had faced death in the river and survived, but now, among these people, he realized survival would not be about strength alone. It would be about proving himself, again and again. The forest whispered around them, the air heavy with unspoken threats. The human knew this night was only the beginning. The law had bound him to the woman, but the clan's hatred was binding him to a fight he could not avoid. And somewhere deep inside he understood. The next challenge would come soon. The sun rose pale over the alien forest, painting the clearing in shades of silver and red. The human awoke to the sound of drums. Deep, heavy beats echoed through the camp, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Around him, the clan was gathering, their armor glowing faintly as the light touched it. The woman stood close to him, her silver hair damp with morning dew. Her face was pale, her markings dim with fear. She spoke softly, her voice trembling. "It has begun. The challenge has been called?" The human frowned. "What challenge?" Before she could answer, the young warrior from the night before stepped into the clearing. His golden eyes blazed with pride, his chest marked with glowing symbols of his bloodline. His blade hung at his side, curved and sharp, pulsing faintly, with strange energy. The warrior pointed at the human, shouting words in the alien tongue. The clan roared in response, their voices rising like a storm. The elder lifted his hand, commanding silence. His voice carried across the clearing, strong and final. The woman translated in a whisper, her voice breaking. "He has challenged you. He says you are unworthy. By the law, he has the right to fight for me. If you refuse, you insult the clan. If you lose, you die." The human's stomach tightened. He had no weapon, no training in their ways. But the moment he looked around, he knew there was no escape. The clan formed a circle, their eyes burning with hunger for blood. The young warrior grinned, stepping into the center of the circle. He slammed his blade into the ground and sparks of golden light spread through the soil. He shouted again, raising his arms to the crowd. They cheered his name, their voices shaking the trees. The human stepped forward slowly. His heart pounded, his hands curled into fists. He had survived the river, he had faced death before. But this was different. This was not nature, this was a man, strong and proud, who wanted him gone. The woman clutched his arm. "Please, be careful. He will not hold back." The elder raised his hand once more. His voice thundered, and the challenge began. The warrior moved first, quick as lightning. His blade swept through the air with deadly force, the golden edge hissing as it cut. The human barely dodged, the blade slicing the air just inches from his chest. The ground shook as it struck stone, sparks flying. The crowd roared, their voices rising in excitement. The human backed away, his eyes fixed on the warrior's movements. He had no weapon, but he had speed. He ducked as the blade came again, rolling across the dirt and springing to his feet. The warrior snarled, pressing forward with strike after strike. Every swing was meant to kill, every step pressed him closer. The human's arms ached, his lungs burned, but he refused to fall. He dodged, twisted, and countered with his fists, striking when he could, though his blows barely slowed the warrior. The woman shouted something in her tongue, her voice filled with desperation. Her eyes locked on him, begging him to endure. The human's mind sharpened. He remembered the river, how he had survived by using the current against itself. He did not need to be stronger. He needed to be smarter. The warrior swung again, his blade heavy with momentum. The human stepped aside at the last second, grabbing the warrior's arm and twisting it sharply. The blade struck the ground, burying itself in the dirt. The warrior stumbled, rage flashing in his eyes. Gasps rose from the crowd. The human pressed forward, striking with all his weight, forcing the warrior onto his back. Dust rose as the young fighter hit the ground, his blade trapped beneath him. The human raised his fist ready to strike but stopped just before the blow landed. Silence fell over the clearing. The human stood, breathing hard, his chest heaving. He looked around at the crowd, his fists still clenched, but his voice steady. "I will not kill him. I will not be like him." The elder stepped forward, his golden eyes wide with surprise. Then he raised his hand high, his voice booming across the camp. The clan roared as one, some in fury, others in awe. The woman ran to his side, her eyes filled with tears. "You won," she whispered, her voice shaking. "The law has spoken. You are hers, and she is yours." The human glanced at her, his breath still uneven. He had fought not just for survival, but for something deeper. He did not understand it fully, but he felt it in the way she looked at him. The bond was no longer only law. It was becoming something more. The young warrior lay in the dirt, defeated but alive. His eyes burned with hatred, but he could not deny the truth. The clan had seen it. The human had proved himself, and yet as the cheers and whispers filled the air, the human felt no victory. He felt only the weight of destiny, pressing heavier than ever. The clearing fell silent for only a breath before the drums began again. Their heavy beat shook the air, demanding the fight continue. The young warrior, still sprawled in the dirt, pushed himself up with a snarl. His golden eyes burned brighter than before, his pride bleeding into rage. The human stood steady, chest rising and falling, his body aching from every dodge and strike. He had spared his rival's life once, but the clan's law was not finished. A true challenge was never over until one stood above the other without question. The elder spoke sharply, his voice commanding. The crowd roared back, their voices echoing through the forest. The woman at the edge of the circle clutched her chest, her silver hair tangled across her face, her glowing markings flickering like dim stars. She whispered through trembling lips, "He will not stop until you break him." The warrior ripped his blade from the dirt with a sharp cry, sparks dancing as it left the earth. He raised it high, the golden glow spilling across his armor, and charged forward with renewed fury. The human braced himself. He had no weapon, no armor, but he had his will. He sidestepped the first strike, the blade slashing air beside his head. Dust flew as the weapon carved the ground. The second strike came faster. He ducked, feeling the heat of the blade singe the air above his back. The crowd cheered with each swing, their voices a storm pressing down on him. The human's heart raced, but his mind sharpened. He remembered the river again, the flow, the current. The way to survive was not to resist, but to turn strength against itself. The warrior lunged, his blade glowing like fire. The human rolled aside, grabbing a fallen branch from the ground. It was weak compared to the alien weapon, but in his hands it became more than wood. It became survival. The warrior laughed, mocking him with words he could not understand, and struck down. The human raised the branch. The blade sliced it in, half, but the moment of resistance slowed the warrior's arm. In that pause, the human drove forward, striking the warrior's chest with his shoulder. The alien stumbled back, surprised by the force. Gasps rose from the clan. The fight grew desperate. The warrior swung wildly, each strike meant to kill. The human dodged, blocked with what little he had, using the broken branch as shield and spear. Splinters cut his hands, sweat stung his eyes, but still he stood. The woman shouted from the crowd, her voice breaking, "Do not give him ground. He wants fear." The human's eyes locked on the warrior's movements. He saw the anger, the arrogance, the blind fury that left openings in each attack. Step by step, he turned the fight. He ducked low as the blade came down, then slammed his fist into the warrior's side. The alien grunted, rage flashing in his eyes. Again and again the human struck, not with strength but with precision. Small blows, fast movements, each one forcing the warrior off balance. The crowd's cheers turned into stunned silence. The final moment came when the warrior raised his blade high, ready to crush him in one strike. The human stepped in close. Too close for the blade to fall, and twisted the warrior's arm with all his strength. The golden weapon tore free from the alien's grip and clattered to the ground. The human grabbed it instinctively. The weight was heavy, strange, but in his hands it felt alive. He raised it high as the warrior fell to his knees, defeated. The clan gasped as one, their eyes wide, their voices caught in their throats. The human stood over his rival, breathing hard, the glowing weapon in his hand. He could end it now. The law would allow it. The crowd would cheer. But he hesitated. His chest rose and fell, his eyes burning not with rage but with choice. He lowered the blade. The clearing fell into silence so deep it felt as though the forest itself listened. The elder stepped forward, his golden eyes bright, his voice steady and commanding. He spoke words that carried through the camp, words the human could not understand but whose meaning he felt in his bones. The woman translated softly, tears filling her eyes. "You have survived. You have proven your strength. You are no longer outsider. You are clan." The human's chest tightened. He looked at the warrior kneeling before him, hatred still burning in his eyes, and then at the woman whose gaze held relief and something deeper, something unspoken. The bond was no longer only a law. It had become a trial, a fight, and a survival. And he had won. But in the silence that followed, as the clan bowed their heads to the elder's judgment, the human felt the weight of his victory press harder than any defeat, because he knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of something far greater, something he could not yet see. The night after the duel burned bright with firelight. The clan gathered in a great circle, their voices hushed, their golden eyes fixed on the human. The air was heavy with smoke and tension, yet beneath it all ran something deeper, a quiet shift, as though the very ground beneath his feet had changed. The human sat near the flames, his body bruised, his arms aching, but his spirit unbroken. The golden weapon he had claimed in the fight now lay across his lap, its glow dim but alive, as if waiting for him to decide its fate. The alien woman sat close beside him. Her silver hair shimmered softly in the firelight, her markings glowing, faintly with calm instead of fear. She glanced at him often, her eyes filled with both gratitude and something he could not name. When the elder stepped forward, the entire clan bowed their heads. His voice rose slowly, deep and steady, carrying through the clearing like the voice of the forest itself. The human could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. Judgment, ceremony, finality. The woman leaned close, whispering softly. "He speaks of the bond. He says it has been tested by trial and fire. You fought, you endured, and by sparing your rival, you showed not only strength, but restraint. To them, this is honor." The human looked around at the clan. Many still glared with distrust, but others now watched him with a strange respect. The whispers that had once been sharp with hatred now carried doubt, hesitation, even curiosity. The elder raised both hands, his voice ringing with finality. The woman's translation came in a trembling whisper. "They will no longer call you outsider. You are one of us, by law, by survival, by destiny." The human's chest tightened. He had come to this world as nothing more than a traveler, a stranger passing through unknown lands. Now, without choice, he had been bound to something larger. The woman shifted closer, her voice quieter, softer. "By law, I belong to you. But I want you to hear my heart. I choose to stand with you not only because of law, but because you saw me as more than a prize. You saved me when you did not have to. You spared me shame. You spared me grief. For that I give you not only what law demands, but what I freely give." Her words struck deeper than any weapon. The human met her eyes, and for the first time the bond felt less like chains and more like a thread tying two lives together. The clan roared then, their voices rising in one united cry. The young warrior who had challenged him knelt bitterly, in silence, but even he could not deny what had been witnessed. The law was unbreakable, and the human had proven himself before all. The leader approached now, his towering frame casting a long shadow across the fire. He stared down at the human for a long moment, his golden eyes unreadable. Then, Slowly, he nodded once, a gesture not of friendship but of recognition. It was enough. The night turned into a celebration, though the human could not shake the weight pressing on him. The clan sang their ancient songs, the firelight dancing across their armor. The woman remained close, her presence steady, her gaze never straying far from his. For the first time he felt something unfamiliar in this alien place. Belonging. And yet, deep inside, unease lingered. He knew this bond, this sudden place among the clan would not come without cost. Whispers of jealousy still stirred in the shadows. Hatred burned quietly in some eyes. And beyond the forest, beyond the law, other dangers surely waited. But as the firelight warmed his skin and the woman's voice reached his ears, soft and steady, he allowed himself, for just one night, to feel peace. Tomorrow, the struggle would return. Tomorrow he would face new trials, but tonight, he was not alone. The elder's voice rose one final time, solemn and commanding. The woman translated in a whisper that trembled with both fear and hope. From this night forward, your lives are bound as one. You carry not only each other but the weight of the clan, the law, and the ancestors. You will walk a path neither of you chose, but one both of you must complete. The human closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words settle. He had saved her life from drowning, but in truth it was she who had pulled him into a world far, deeper than any river. When he opened his eyes again, the fire burned higher, the clan's voices rose louder, and the woman's hand rested lightly against his. For the first time, he did not pull away.